this segment, I will analyze some of the discursive threads in the responses by Hindu Council and Hindu Youth on that TVNZ Q&A section. The first concept I will unpack is the concept of pride. Now, Hindutva groups across the diaspora often draw upon the idea of pride to assert legitimacy as migrant community. It is important here that we connect this notion of pride to the ways in which Hindutva's articulation of pride is constructed in relationship with the notion of the Muslim other. This goes back to the key Hindutva texts and the ways in which they see Muslims and Christians as outside of the land that is constructed as Hindustan. In this sense then, inherent to the notion of pride crafted by Hindutva is the exclusion of India's Christian and Muslim minorities. In the diaspora, therefore, we need to critically ask who is being included in Hindutva's assertion of pride and who is being excluded from the assertion of pride. The second point I want to attend to is Mr. Vinod Kumar's references to RSS and the Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh and his presence in Aotearoa, and then the notion that the HSS exists to offer protection to Hindus. So the question here is, what is the kind of protection that the RSS is offering Hindus in India when Hindus constitute the majority community? And what is the notion of protection when, as we witness empirically, majority of the violence being experienced in the communal sense is directed toward Muslims and Christian minorities? And then connecting that to the question of protection here in diaspora, the question worth asking is who is being protected by organizations such as HSS here in the diaspora, and what protections do Hindus need here in the diaspora? I certainly feel, as a practicing Hindu, the freedom to practice my faith here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and in other parts of the globe that I have lived in, including the US and in Singapore, and certainly don't feel threatened. So it's important that we consider this question of protection and note that this notion of protecting Hindu rights is often mobilized in order to hold up the discursive architecture of Hindutva, which in turn mobilizes the processes of recruiting new members as well as the organizing of Hindutva forces. The final point I want to bring up here is the notion, and this was brought up by Hindu Youth, that we are here and we invite academics to come have dialogue with us. Now, the questions worth asking is, the role of academics is to fundamentally look for truth and to critically interrogate dynamics of power. So within the context of Hindutva, those of us across the globe that study Hindutva, we examine the ways and processes through which Hindutva consolidates power and how that shapes processes of marginalization. Within that sense then, any notion of dialogue as it emerges from Hindutva spaces is A, heavily constrained, but B, is also a tool for gatekeeping, where the implicit message is that your research or your academic work is not valid to the extent that we haven't done the work of gatekeeping. Now, this is a strategy that is often used by Hindutva to target academic freedom, to silence academics studying Hindutva, and then to frame us as Hinduphobic. So it's critically important once again that we interrogate this narrative of dialogue and really ask what is the kind of dialogue that Hindutva is wanting to have. Certainly with the letters that Massey has received in the backdrop of my writings of Hindutva don't seem dialogic. They seem intended toward either silencing the work that I'm doing or developing gatekeeping processes that filter the nature of the work. So once again, in this presentation, I just wanted to analyze three main aspects of the Hindutva narrative. One is the narrative of pride, the other is the narrative of protection, the third is the notion of dialogue. And it is important that we look at the ways in which communication is constructed, the ways in which discourses are constructed when we examine how Hindutva presents itself both in India as well as across the diaspora globally when constructing itself in dialogue with multiculturalism in global contexts. Thank you.